How's it going, trainers? We're back, and today we're going to be doing another first on my channel. I'm going to be posting a discussion video. So today's discussion video is going to be about Regulation G and what I think Regulation G is going to be like. It's more speculation, a little bit of theory crafting. We did get, and I'll pull it up here on screen, we did get a little potential spoiler about what the format will be about based on this little poster here. This is the Japan Championships for 2024. Now this is happening in April and we're still in Regulation F in April. However, you see a couple of box art legendaries there. This is going to be based off of my experience with Sword and Shield and what they did with restrictive formats in that regard. So we're kind of going to go at it from that angle. If you're new to this channel, hello, please subscribe. I'm Zero. This whole channel is competitive singles, whether that be Master Ball 3v3s or Wi-Fi random battles. I've been doing some monotypes and some other things. This will be my first discussion video. Like I said, I don't really plan on doing a whole lot of discussion videos unless I think it warrants it. This is going to be a major shift in the meta if this happens. So I kind of wanted to talk about it and get you guys maybe potentially ahead of the curve when Regulation G drops for 3v3 singles specifically. This is an active discussion video slash thread. I want you guys to leave comments, talk about who you think is going to be good, who I missed, anything, ask questions, about, you know, oh, maybe what do you think about this Pokemon? Ask me, ask the community. And yeah, let's just start talking about it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. So yeah, let's dive in. All right, so first things first, what do I think Regulation G is going to look like? I believe that this format is going to be a one restricted only format. And so what do I mean by restricted? Restricted is usually box art legendaries and then maybe a couple outliers, but for the most part, it's the Pokemon you see on the boxes you buy when you go to the store. Like, as you can see here, Mewtwo, Mew's kind of a mythical, Lugia, Ho-Oh, just, you see some mythicals in here, but yeah, basically just, you know, the super strong stuff that you get people spamming on the ladder. So in Sword and Shield, we had a format very similar to this. It was one restricted Pokemon and then everything else. So I do believe that we are going to get this format again, whether or not it's Regulation G or a format maybe after it. I think we're going to get this format, and my early predictions are that Sun, Electric, Terrain, and Rain are going to be the first archetypes to dominate the first few weeks. We all have our Miraidons and Koraidons, you know, like battle ready to go. Maybe we use them for raids. And we're going to use them. We want to use them. So we're going to see a lot of Koraidon. We're going to see a lot of Miraidon the first couple of weeks because it's that new toy syndrome. The other part of this is Sun and Electric Terrain are going to enable Paradox Pokemon. So we're going to see lots of offensive archetypes that'll be kind of running amok. We'll see a higher number of Paradox Pokemon than usual, I think, before we kind of pave way to a more like balanced play style and more balanced teams. But that's my early prediction. Lots of Paradox Pokemon, lots of Miraidon, lots of Koraidon. In this next section, I'm going to go like Pokemon by Pokemon, who I think is going to be like the S tier threats, the top dogs, the centralizing Pokemon in the format. All right, first and foremost, let's just start with Miraidon. Box art legendary, everyone's going to want to try this Pokemon out. It's being suspect tested by Smogon, or maybe at the time of posting this, it was suspect tested. So it's S tier for a reason. Crazy high special attack, good stab combination, good speed, as you can see here, 135. And it's got Hadron Engine, pardon me, which starts Electric Terrain, further boosting its electric stab moves. And also enables things like Iron Bundle and stops the use of sleep moves like Spore and Yawn. So again, like stall tactics like that are going to take a back seat very early on in this meta. I don't know if we'll see them come back until we get more restricteds to kind of like balance that out. But like Miraidon itself can rip through a lot of potential stall teams. It's a really strong pivot Pokemon and can even do defensive sets with things like Electric Seed. You'll see a lot of this Pokemon early on. Parabolic Charge could be used in those kinds of defensive sets. Got Overheat here. Yeah, just lots of good stuff. Volt Switch. I think U-Turn is better. I think you should run U-Turn on your sets. Thunderwave, Taunt. Like, this Pokemon has so many options. Calm Mind, Draco Meteor. So yeah, I think a lot of the early sets you're going to see is going to be U-Turn, Electro Drift, which, yeah, right here, Electro Drift. We've got boosted more if it's super effective. So like just one shot anything, you know, like one shot all those Kyogres and stuff like that. But yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of pivoting. You're going to see some specs. I think you're going to see a lot of Terra Electric. You're going to see some Terra Dragon and Terra Fairy. I think Terra Fairy is always a great option for dragons. I don't think you can ever go wrong going Terra Fairy with dragons. All right, moving on, we've got Zacian Crowned specifically. I think a lot of people have asked or wondered, is this Pokemon still going to be good even after its special, or not, pardon me, after its attack was nerfed from 170 to 150? Do I think it's going to be good? Yes. I think it's going to be really good. This is going to be a top dog once again, in my opinion, in this format. Crazy high speed. Intrepid Sword gives you +1 attack boost every time you enter the battle. So it's effectively not 150. You know, it's effectively still just as strong. And things don't double their HP, so you're still going to be hitting just as hard as you were before. It's got a really good strong stab combination. Like, look at this Pokemon's defenses too. Like, this Pokemon is never really like in threat of being one hit KO'd. It's got a base stat total of 700. Like, yeah, so I think this Pokemon is going to be S tier. I think this is going to be one of the more reliable options early on. I think Terra Fire is really good because that kind of keeps you out of Fluttermane's clutches, you know, with the Mystical Fire sets. Really, it's going to kind of just come down to what coverage you want to run. I think Swords Dance, Sub, and then like Dual Stab with Play Rough, and Iron Head or Behemoth Blade. I think that's the best set, but it also has lots of really good options. I think it's got close combat now. It had Sacred Sword before. I'm sure it still has it. Yeah, Crunch is an option. Wild Charge is an option. I think this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be an S tier Pokemon. Yep, there's Sacred Sword. Yeah, look forward to a lot of Zacian. I think this is an insane Pokemon. I think it was insane last game. I think it's going to be insane this game. Next up, we've got the Calyrex Shadow Rider. This Pokemon was banned from Ubers. So once again, you know it's going to be good. It's the premier Scarfed Sweeper. Look at this insane spread. 150 speed, 165 special attack. Put a Scarf on it. Attack with Astral Barrage, of 120 base, I believe. Ghost move. Stab, just, you know, ridiculous here. Let's yep, Astral Barrage, yeah, 120 base power, just, and then every time you pick up a KO, you get a Grimnay, you get a special attack boost. So not a whole lot to be said here. The presence of this Pokemon, I think, is going to shift Terras in Pokemon like Fluttermane. I think they're going to have to move to normal or dark. And I think the same is actually going to be done for this Pokemon as well. I think you're only going to see normal. I think you're only going to see dark. I don't think Ghost is a necessary option for this Pokemon. I don't think you really need to double dip because it's so strong already. It also has access to some really nice moves. We've got like Leaf Blade, or, oh, pardon me, not Leaf Blade. Leaf Storm, Psyshock. Psyshock is going to be like the biggest. I think you're going to have to run Psyshock on all your sets to kind of punish any sort of stall teams you might run into. Also punishes Fluttermane. Then we got Nasty Plot, Encore. This Pokemon is going to break, man. It's going to break teams if you're not prepared for it. It's going to sweep you. So have an answer for this, whether that be some sort of Terra Normal Pokemon or like an Assault Vest Pokemon. And we'll talk about some other options here soon, but this is going to be an insane Pokemon to go up against. And now talking about its counterpart, the Ice Rider, this is the Pokemon that I think is going to kind of like usher in, you know, the more we see usage of this, I think it's going to usher in more of that balanced play style. But it's a self-setting Trick Room user. It's pretty much impossible to one-hit KO. 150 defense, 130 special defense, 100 HP, and then we got that 165 in the attack this time. Assault vest sets can work, but I think they're a little less likely than like weakness policy. I think self-setting trick room and having weakness policy is the best set, and then you kind of just go glacial lance, high horsepower. That's pretty much all you need. I think this Pokemon also learns close combat as well. It's got body press this gen. This Pokemon has glacial lance, 120 base physical attack, doing a lot of the same things that Astral Barrage does. It's also got access to like close combat here. We've got some other things. Heavy Slam is a fun little silly option. Stomping Tantrum, not as good as high horsepower, but I don't believe this Pokemon gets high horsepower anymore. Yeah, it's definitely got some options, like Smart Strike. That's kind of a nice little gimmicky thing, but you truly only need ground and ice to really like rip through teams. I like the self-setting Trick Room user because if you decide to go with like an Assault Vest version, you gotta rely on like lesser Trick Room setters like Indeedee, Hatterene, Mimikyu, even Rabsca. So yeah, I think this is gonna be a Pokemon that kind of like ushers us away from the highly offensive team comps later on in the format, but yeah, I think this will be a really good Pokemon. All right, and then our last S tier threat. I mean, I'm sure I missed potentially some, but we got Kyogre here. The old Scarfed Rain setter, 150 base special attack, 90 speed, which is getting worse and worse these days. I mean, it was workable last gen, but like you're not outspeeding Scarfed Miraidon at this point. But we got Water Spout. Obviously, that's like what we're here for. 150 base power if you are at max health, and then it goes down for all the damage you've taken. You're gonna see Terra Water in the rain with, you know, with the Choice Scarf, and they're just gonna blow through once again unprepared teams. Other coverage moves include Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Thunder as well. I personally don't think you really want to go Terra Water with this Pokemon. I think you want to resist Miraidon, so I think you're gonna see a lot of Terra Grass or Terra Electric. Because Terra Grass also helps you against some other things as well, but also at the same time kind of makes you weak to Koraidon, which is kind of interesting. But like this is going to enable the rain teams. Obviously, you've got Archaladon, who's, you know, a new rain staple, and Barraskewda to pivot into your favorable matchups. And rain is looking like a solid choice to learn the ropes of Regulation G. Like I said, Assault Vest is a pretty good option, and I think it will get better as we move away from high-powered offense. It will be better with balance. You can also do Calm Mind if you want. But yeah, I think early on, Scarf is what you're going to see. But definitely don't be afraid to try Assault Vest. And maybe potentially lean away from Terra Water. All right, next we're moving into our Dark Horses. This is Pokemon that you don't necessarily think of first and foremost when you think of this format. But I think these are Pokemon that have the potential to be really good, even early on. So first thing we're talking about is Dialga Origin Form. So the Origin Form is the buff that Dialga has needed for a long time, taking 20 points from its attack and adding it to its defenses. So now we've got this even 120 defense and special defense, 150 base special attack, 90 speed. Like, it's just a solid stat spread. And this Pokemon's always been bulky because it's got a really nice Steel and Dragon typing, which is also a really nice dual stab. Functions decently well in a Trick Room. It's capable of taking hits from a lot of Pokemon. Again, Assault Vest I really like on this Pokemon, so you can trade. I think trading is really good. And you kind of stay out of range of Draco Meteors from Miraidon. So this is a really nice check to that. And could potentially do some work against the Shadow Rider as well. But Iron or Earth Power, Roar of Time if you really want to go crazy, Flash Cannon, Aura Sphere. This Pokemon has lots of options. Thunder Wave is actually a decent option. But yeah, Thunderbolt, Flamethrower, Ice Beam, Fire Blast, like tons and tons of coverage options here. I think this is gonna be a solid Pokemon. Draco Meteor, this is gonna be a solid Pokemon in my opinion. I think this will be a really fun one to use. It's definitely going to favor more balanced teams. But yeah, be on the lookout for this one. I think people are going to use this. It checks Kyogre as well. I think people are going to really lean into this to check those really strong special attackers. All right, moving on, we've got Necrozma Duskmane. So you look at this Pokemon stat spread, 77 speed, not great, but everything else really, really damn solid. Prism Armor reduces the damage of super effective attacks, so this is critical. This Pokemon can be extremely defensive, but where it really gets going is with like a Dragon Dance set with weakness policy in Morning Sun. Already talked about Prism Armor, which just kind of allows weakness policy to pop off a little bit easier. It's got Sunsteel Strike, which is a nice move to, it goes through abilities, so basically you're hitting Mimikyu. That's the big one. Through the disguise for the KO. It's also a really nice Stealth Rock setter, but I think using your one restricted slot on a Pokemon that's setting up Stealth Rock seems a little suboptimal. When we get a format that allows 2 or more restricted Pokemon, I can see a lot more play for defensive sets. But right now I think setup plus weakness policy, Dragon Dance is really going to be the way to go. And then, just tag an Earthquake here in Morning Sun. So I think that's going to be the best set is Morning Sun, DD, Sunsteel Strike, and Earthquake. So yeah, keep your eyes out for this Pokemon for sure. Next up, we got Ho-Oh. We got a nice regenerator Pokemon here. It's an interesting Pokemon that I see like really benefiting from the change of gimmicks that we have had from Gen 8 to Gen 9. Like last generation, this Pokemon was kind of like looked over for Pokemon that hit a little harder because everything is doubling its HP. So like 130 wasn't really cutting it per se, whereas now I think that is a lot better, especially considering it's got Fire Stab. So it's got access to Sacred Fire, 50% chance to burn, insane, ridiculous 154 special defense. And another thing, like with the gimmick changes, is like now you've got access to Terra Ground, which I think will be potentially the best Terra for this Pokemon. You're still weak to water, but you're getting an immunity to things like Miraidon. It also powers up your Earthquakes that you don't want to leave home without Earthquake on this Pokemon for sure. Sacred Fire, Earthquake, Recover, and then you can honestly kind of go anywhere. Like you've got dual Wing Beat if you really want it. You also have where's it at? Flame Charge is here as well. Like tons of options. I think this would be an underrated Pokemon for sure. Keep your eye out for this one. Definitely don't want to leave home without Earthquake because it helps you handle Miraidon and Zacian. All right, last Pokemon I kind of want to talk about for the Dark Horses is Terapagos, particularly the Stellar form, because it's got an interesting place in the meta. Because when you use the Terra and you use this form, it has an ability that shuts off the effects of weather and terrain. But therein lies a problem. You have to dedicate your Terra to this Pokemon. So while it is important to have some sort of plan with your Terra before you toss out your first Pokemon, being flexible is important as well. The nice thing about using your Terra on Terapagos is, as you can see, it gets some pretty insane stats. It becomes, another 700 base total Pokemon. Obviously one of the higher base stat totals we've seen. Rock Polish and Meteor Beam to me is one of the better sets. Biggest problem is like, will you have 2 turns to pull that off? Remains to be seen, but I do like that set a lot. Another set I enjoy is Scarf with Terra Starstorm spam. That could be pretty good. Biggest downside obviously is the speed. 85 is definitely lackluster, and even a Scarf is gonna have a hard time fixing that. But it's got plenty of coverage, as well as things like Stealth Rock, Calm Mind. Once again, I'll echo, I don't think you should put Stealth Rock on this Pokemon in the early stages, but like look at this coverage, Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, Earth Power. Here's Calm Mind, like we talked about. Solar Beam. I think this will be a decently solid Pokemon. I'm just curious where its niche is going to be. I think this is definitely more of like a VGC Pokemon to kind of counterplay. Like we've seen this attempted with Rayquaza before. I am interested to see if this works out better than Rayquaza. No disrespect, because I love Rayquaza, but we're talking about the other Pokemon way more often than that. So next we're going to move into Pokemon that are not restricted Pokemon, but I think are going to be solid, or that you should consider taking into your team. These are all going to look pretty familiar. Obviously, first we've got Landorus. Landorus will once again prove its worth with Intimidate, I believe. Pairing this with an AV or Trice Scarf really helps the entire team, because it can eat a hit and then pivot around and grab yourself a nice matchup. It can also be used to like slow down the likes of Calyrex Ice or Necrozma Dustmane if you use Terra Water. Gives you a resistance to their most commonly used stab moves. Landorus continues to age like a fine wine, even with the great power creep of Generation 9. Leads well against Ogerpon as well. Yeah, not too much to be said about this. You got Rock Tomb to slow things down. You're going to want to keep Earthquake. You're going to want to have U-Turn, all of those things. And, Taunt's not terrible either. So, like, what you decide to do outside of those first three moves is really up to you. It also leads against our next Pokemon, and that would be Rillaboom. Rillaboom is a decent option, I think. Setting up grassy terrain to keep your Pokemon alive a little bit longer. The biggest thing with Rillaboom is it's a nice check to Kyogre because of Grassy Glide. That'll be its biggest role, as well as just kind of deterring things like Barraskewda from even being chosen in Team Select. But it can wear an AV, and it can use Knockoff to check Calyrex Shadow Rider as well. So I think AV will be where a lot of its use is, and just kind of spamming Knockoff in Grassy Glide. So nice, decent little tech option, especially if you find yourself like pretty weak to Kyogre and Calyrex Shadow Rider. All right, next non-restricted option I believe will be King Gambit. We're going to see some renewed use in this format. Its dual stab combo threatens a lot of new Pokemon to the format, like a lot of those psychic Pokemon, a lot of those ghost Pokemon. It's got access to Sucker Punch to help you win 50-50 matchups and ignore speed ties, or ignore speed tiers altogether. Terra Dark plus Black Glasses is kind of the way I like to run it. You can go with Supreme Overlord, or you can go with Defiant. But yeah, I like Black Glasses. Terra Dark, Sucker Punch really punishes Choice Scarf Pokemon. Defiant's good against Landorus, but Supreme Overlord can help you turn around a game that you thought you may have lost. It's also a solid Trick Room abuser, so we'll see more of that with Calyrex Ice. And speaking of Calyrex, King Gambit's typing completely walls Calyrex Shadow. They're going to have to like Terra Fighting or Terra Ground or something absurd to beat King Gambit. All right, next up, Chien-Pao. This Pokemon's just going to continue to do what it does, and that's wear a Focus Sash and knock something out with a combination of Icicle Crash / Crunch and Sucker Punch. I don't expect this strategy to really lose much gas in Regulation G, but Zacian will eat this Pokemon for breakfast. Just keep that in mind, because even Sacred Sword is a 3-hit KO to fully offensive Zacian. That's not even with any sort of HP investment. Still leads pretty well into Ogerpon, Landorus, even after Intimidated. Rillaboom, like we talked about, leads decently well into Miraidon, and leads pretty well into Scarfed Kyogre, because Crunch into Sucker Punch is still a KO on offensive Kyogre. Not to mention, it can be hard for Scarfed Calyrex Shadow to take this Pokemon down, barring Terras. Alright, one of my last highlights for non-restricted Pokemon would be Walking Wake. It seems like an exceptional offensive piece in Regulation G due to what might start as a Weather War kind of format. It benefits from both Kyogre and Groudon / Koraidon being in a match, and its signature move, Steam Eruption, benefits from being in the sun and from being in the rain. So it's really like, it's kind of a win-win. You round the set out with Draco Meteor and Flamethrower. It kind of seems like Walking Wake is covering a lot of bases. Almost feels like cheating, being able to use this Pokemon as like a secondary offensive option. You can go Booster Speed or Booster Special Attack. Just kind of work out your matchups. Walking Wake naturally outspeeds a lot of dragons in this format with 109 base speed. A lot of the other dragons are 90 base speed. So yeah, this is just a super solid Pokemon. Really going to benefit, in my opinion, with some of the new legendaries running around. So yeah, I definitely would take a look at this Pokemon for your team when you're team building, or even just kind of having it as like a check to weather teams. So before I finish up, I kind of want to talk about a couple Pokemon here who may lose a lot of footing. Now, this is kind of like a bold claim. You see Fluttermane, you're like, but sir, that's, one of the best Pokemon in the game. It is. But I think this could, this might sound crazy, but I think we're going to see a pretty decent decline in the use of Fluttermane and Dragonite as well. Fluttermane, may as well be a restricted Pokemon, but it may finally be outclassed offensively by Calyrex Shadow. Toss in the fact that Calyrex can hit Fluttermane on the physical side for a one-hit KO with Psyshock, and that's while being timid, mind you. It doesn't even have to be modest for that one-hit KO. And offensive Fluttermane doesn't really feel like the optimal choice, especially like booster, like Specs or, booster special attack or whatever. I don't think this Pokemon's gonna like kind of fall into like the gutters and be hardly used, but I think we're gonna see more of a utility or defensive niche with booster speed like we've seen a little bit before. Charm, Pain Splits, Substitute, Thunder Wave, like moves like that, I think we're gonna start seeing a lot more. You're gonna start seeing like the tricky side of Fluttermane, and we're gonna see a little bit less of the offensive side. And then in that same vein, like we got Dragonite here. I don't think it's going to be able to break through teams as easily anymore. Super bulky options like Dialga and across with Duskmane are going to make life tough on Dragonite. And Dragonite will also have a little more trouble dealing with Calyrex Ice in general, even with Multi-Scale and Terra. I think a set similar to the Fire Spin, Roost, Rocky Helmet stuff will be a little bit better. But I'm far less sold on Dragonite than I am with like utility Fluttermane, and I'm not like super sold on that to begin with. Alright guys, so that's gonna wrap up the conversation. Hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, hope that you are feeling a little more prepared. Do you think I'm crazy with some of my takes? Maybe I'm a little bit crazy, but yeah, just let me know in the comments. Let's have a discussion. Let me know what you thought about this discussion video. Should I do more of them? And what do you think about the possibility of having one restricted Pokemon in Regulation G? It's going to be a huge change if this happens. Like I said, it's not official. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Thank you for giving me this like avenue to have this discussion. I really hope that we will talk in the comments more about this. And without further ado, I'm probably off on vacation right now. At the time of this posting, I'm probably in Virginia Beach. So I'll check you guys in a week or so. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later.